Some of the best fighters from all over the world join the UFC roster, and each has their own unique journey inside the Octagon. That being said, due to the UFC being a big deal, there have been a number of famous rivalries between fighters, some of which have gone beyond the Octagon. In this video, we'll look into a few UFC fighters that hate each other. Number 1. Bethe Correia vs. Ronda Rousey. Bethe Correia got a shot at the title at UFC 190 against Ronda Rousey, who was champion at the time, after beating Jasmine Duke and Shayna Baszler, two of her peers. She pushed for a title shot and made the champion mad by telling her that Ronda Rousey would never be able to take one of her punches, and that she hoped Rousey wouldn't kill herself after her first loss. Ronda Rousey was deeply hurt by what she said, because her father killed himself when she was a child. She said she would beat her so badly that it would hurt her forever. Ronda Rousey agreed to fight her, and the fight happened at UFC 190. Ronda Rousey knocked out Bethe in just 34 seconds, and she kept her title. Number 2. Khabib Nurmagomedov vs. Conor McGregor. Now, whether you're a UFC fan or not, you're most probably familiar with the McGregor and Khabib fight. One of Conor's teammates had flown all the way to the UFC 223 venue, where Khabib was scheduled to fight for his first ever title. The Irishman attacked a UFC bus on media day for UFC 223. Conor's teammate Artem Lobov was slapped by Khabib, who was pressuring him about why he was talking badly about him, despite them both being fellow Russians. However, Conor was having none of it, and flew all the way from Ireland to New York with his teammates to avenge his teammate. Conor attacked the bus Khabib was on with a dolly and broke a window, which left fighters like Michael Chiesa and Ray Borg cut and shocked. Following this incident, UFC decided to make both rivals fight at UFC 229. However, as brutal as the fight was, the first press conference was nothing less. From drinking his whiskey brand Proper 12 to hurling insults to Khabib about his personal life. However, Khabib stayed calm and called upon the Irish fans to wait till the day of the fight, when he would smash their boy. The fight was filled with emotion, as Khabib had previously called Conor McGregor a tap machine and a chicken. Starting off with the fight, Khabib was dominating Conor with his ground game, and Conor couldn't pull himself out of Khabib's grapple. However, Khabib was seen fatigued in the middle of the fight, but pulled himself together and held McGregor in a neck crank, eventually winning the battle. Even though the fight was held almost 6 years ago, Conor still talks and trashes Khabib on his social media, talking about his personal life, and has also accused Khabib of very serious crimes back in his home country, Russia. However, instead of replying, Khabib chose to stay silent, which makes up for more bad blood between the two, as the silence is more irritating for the Irishman than the actual response. Number 3. George St. Pierre vs. Nick Diaz. George St. Pierre was always a humble and polite winner, but Nick Diaz's abuse made GSP act badly. They got into a lot of heated fights outside the Octagon, which made things bad between the two athletes. GSP even asked the UFC to find Nick Diaz and fight him next to teach him a lesson. The fight for the UFC welterweight title took place at UFC 158 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. The judges all agreed that GSP won the fight. Nick Diaz spoke out and said that GSP was afraid to fight him. In response, GSP said that if they ever fought again, he would beat Diaz even worse than the first time. Number 4. Michael Bisping vs. Dan Henderson. Michael Bisping and Dan Henderson were coaches on The Ultimate Fighter, where they got into a fight. These two fought at UFC 100, and in the second round, Dan Henderson knocked out Michael Bisping very severely. After Bisping was knocked out, he hit him with a flying elbow, saying it was only to shut him up a little bit. Bisping hasn't been happy about this since. After Bisping won the UFC middleweight title at UFC 199, he said Henderson should fight him in his first title defense to get back at him. At UFC 204, both fighters were set to face each other again. Number 5. Anderson Silva vs. Chael Sonnen. While Sonnen was not the best fighter in the UFC, he will certainly be remembered by fans for his signature trash-talking and confident personality. Talking about his personality, no better incident demonstrated his aggressive demeanor than his rivalry with Anderson Silva. Sonnen had called out Anderson Silva on multiple occasions, which has made their fight one of the most anticipated ones in the UFC. On August 7, 2010, the two finally met in the Octagon at UFC 117. Sonnen had entered the ring looking like he had full intention of backing up all his trash-talking. However, in the 5th round, things took a turn and Silva was able to submit Sonnen with a triangle armbar. Despite losing, Sonnen had not stopped calling Silva out, which further fueled the bad blood between both fighters. Number 6. Cris Cyborg vs. Ronda Rousey. Cris Cyborg was thought to be the only fighter who could beat Ronda Rousey before Holly Holm beat her. Cyborg was banned for a year in 2011 after testing positive for steroids. Rousey has said she would fight Cyborg if she could get to 135 pounds. Rousey said that Cyborg couldn't make the weight because she was abusing steroids. She has since challenged Rousey to fight her at a catch weight of 140 pounds, but the fight never happened. Even now, in 2024, they're still trash-talking each other. Number 7. Frank Mir vs. Brock Lesnar. We all know about Brock Lesnar's legacy as a WWE fighter. However, did you know that Brock Lesnar had also been part of the UFC for quite some time? Brock Lesnar's first fight in the UFC was against Frank Mir at UFC 81. He lost by knee bar submission in the first round. As soon as he got over that loss, he beat Heath Herring at UFC 87 and then Randy Couture by TKO at UFC 91. Then at UFC 100, Lesnar got back at Mir for his only loss by giving him a TKO. Lesnar yelled insults at Mir after the fight. Frank Mir pushed for the fight by saying he hated Brock Lesnar so much that he wanted him to be the first person to die in the Octagon. Number 8. Miesha Tate vs. Ronda Rousey. At Strikeforce Tate vs. Rousey, Ronda Rousey was set to fight Miesha Tate, who was the Strikeforce Women's Bantamweight champion at the time. During the fight, Rousey won the battle by arm bar in the first round. After coaching on Season 18 of The Ultimate Fighter, things got very tense. At UFC 168, they fought again, and Rousey beat Tate by armbar in the 3rd round to keep her UFC Bantamweight title. Rousey wouldn't shake Tate's hand after the fight. Tate has said that she and Rousey will never be friends. Number 9. Conor McGregor vs. Jose Aldo. For almost a year, Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo, the UFC featherweight champion, were rivals and talked trash to each other. Before their fight at UFC 189, Aldo hurt his rib, and McGregor said that Aldo didn't want to face someone else. Aldo replied that he would kill McGregor and cut off his head. They finally fought at UFC 194. In just 13 seconds, McGregor put Aldo out and won the UFC featherweight title. Being after McGregor since the loss, Aldo wants a repeat and says he's ready to fight him in public if necessary. Number 10. Jon Jones vs. Daniel Cormier. Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier fought and yelled insults at the press meeting before the fight. In the end, they fought at UFC 182, and Jon Jones beat Cormier by unanimous decision. Jones told Cormier after the fight that he didn't like him and would love to beat him up again. After the fight, Jones was in a hit-and-run accident and lost the UFC light heavyweight title. Cormier won the empty title at UFC 187. Jones called Cormier out and said he would fight him at his own gym in a match that wasn't really a fight in order to get his belt back. That wraps up the video. If you enjoyed this video, please show us your support by liking our video and subscribing to our YouTube channel with the bell notifications on so you never miss another upload on our channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.